I know I have my own computer. All right, y'all. It is looking through the glass. As always, you should know that you're listening to us. And this is Giselle. I'm gonna be a little cocky today.
Obviously. This is Sela laughing at her.
And we have a special guest today. Her name is Bron. And I said that right, right?
You sure did.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I'm very bad with names.
Me
And
too. I said
today,
your mum's name be wrong before.
You are not the only one. It's okay. You won't be the last.
I'm surprised everybody's been getting my name right, okay? And today, honestly, I'm not even going to tell you where the conversation's going to go because when we start out that way, we end up going anywhere
Somewhere
else.
completely different.
But I do want to mention that Bron has survived multiple cancers, and she's here talking to us, and she's is going to tell us about that resilience that she has. Because look at her, she's here, and some of y'all can see her, some of y'all can't.
If you can't, wait until you're done driving, then come back.
Exactly.
Go to YouTube.
Exactly.
Don't look right now if you're driving. Come back to us.
But Bron, tell us about that. Tell us about that battle because, in that watching somebody go through it is not the same as somebody going through it because we cannot fully understand, comprehend the mental battle that you're going through and what you're facing.
It's such a good question, and I'm actually a nurse educator in my previous life, so registered nurse and nurse educator. So I had been the person watching, supporting, being a part of, having empathy, providing care for decades. And when you become the patient in the bed, it is like I couldn't believe just how vastly different it was to being the person on the other side of the bed. And with the health, with the medical profession, it was ridiculous in some ways because you think you understand, but you don't. And the thing is, the other side of that coin, though, is that adversity comes in all shapes and sizes. So as I'm lying there in that bed getting care, and when you know what they're meant to be doing, it's not good. And it's not that they don't, but you can just see, how it's meant to play out. And when things don't play out the way you want, with your health and with life, it's like a time in the road where you either go, oh, man, why is this happening to me? And I don't like the word victim because we are victims in a lot of ways. So just don't look at that as a positive term, please, guys. Don't look at it in a bad way because we always do the best we can with what we've got. And it's not till you go through, say, first of all, breast cancer, curable, treat, get on that track and you get that treatment done and you do all the things. And then with the second diagnosis, which is an incurable blood cancer, it's like, well, now we're in for the marathon. But I thought I'd already been on a marathon. Like, what are you talking about? How can we do a second marathon?
Right?
I'd already done. I thought I had done all the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can remember in those very first few weeks, a colleague, not even a friend, a woman who I'd met through business, had said to me, Bron, if you don't change the way you're living, it's going to come back, don't you? Scared the living bejeebers out of me. Like, what? How could someone say that? And it took me a long time because that's traumatic. Let me tell you guys, it's traumatic to go, well, what do I have to change? Where do I start? And then you start the Googling,
I can only
and then
imagine.
That's when you go down the rabbit warren. So when you've got all of that going on, which is life-saving activity, and then for me, I have 5 children. I have 5 sons and my husband, Paul, and there's all these other life things. It's just like, can I swear?
Yes.
It's just,
Yeah, you can.
I actually called it the
you
shit
can
show.
talk as raw as you want to talk, please.
Well, I called it the shit show 2.0, and I found a coaster which said, "Welcome to the shit show." And the way I shared that I had incurable cancer was I held up this coaster in front of me and said, "Welcome to the shit show," because everyone had been through the first journey with me for 5 years. And, yeah, there's nothing that can prepare you. You know what it's like. You know, Celia, you've been through tragedy and adversity.
Live, we said, "Welcome to the shit show." We called it our first live on TikTok. It was "Welcome to the shit show."
It's welcome to the shit show because it's still a shit show. So to me, it's my shit show 2.0. And it goes up and it's down. So I don't think I answered your question. But anyway, there you go. Yeah, not fun, but at the same time, one of the biggest blessings I've had because I now get to choose how I live every single day. In other words, I'm so conscious and so grateful and so passionate about living what's right for me, because we are human beings, we're not human doings. So that was my first really big lesson was, Bron, you don't need to be a doing machine, you can be a human being, and that's the way it's meant to be. So
well, I really like that.
It definitely makes you take life and look at life differently and probably more positively.
Well, you know, you go through clearly waves of grief, right? Like anything, like having a baby. Just saying, you know, when you don't know what you're doing and this baby won't stop crying and the da-da-da-da-da and the stuff and the things. It's like
Grieving
those
your
patterns
past
in
life before the baby. We were just talking. We did an episode just talked about that earlier today. Was her
Seems to
grieving
be a
her
trend
life
today.
prior to the baby?
Oh, look, and the grief is real. So this is where I talk about grief and gratitude in the same lane, because it's a very it's so challenging, but it's making peace with that middle line, and it swings, and it's meant to swing because it's completely normal. And I remember, obviously, after my first child, right through to my fifth child, you know, like grieving, like, oh, really? And, you know, you think, what's one more baby, Bron, at 5? My God, that that beautiful child, Ollie, he didn't tip me over. He's not a thing, people. He's 6 foot tall, beautiful 16-year-old now. But just the washing from a child on top of everything else, that nearly sunk me, because that's where the scales absolutely tipped out of my favour. Were they ever in my favour? Probably not. But yeah, it's because it's in that moment where the grief comes up, and in my world, I say feel the feels. Feel it. Let it hit you. Let it come in. Because I think a lot of us try to push it away and go, I haven't got time for that.
Yeah.
But you got to feel the feels. And then the next thing is what I say is we want to control the controllables. So when you're dealing with something like cancer and treatment, well, what's in my control? Well, what's in my control is whether I enjoy my morning coffee because it's your evening. What's in my control is what I think and say to myself in that moment. So what happens with the control, so I control the controllables, and then I pause because I'm still crying, I'm still doing the thing, but I want to pause. I want to reflect on what's really going on and not all the shit that I've shoved onto this little piece of adversity or little scenario that's gone on, and then I respond. I don't react. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I might rinse and repeat dozens and dozens of times until that feeling has passed or that emotion has passed, which means, you know, could be crying. I do cry a lot. How could I not? How could you not?
How could you not? Yeah,
how could you not?
Like, absolutely. Just Friday was my aunt's heavenly birthday. We lost her to cancer, and we watched that. Well, as you know, it happens, and it's hard, you know. And
Yes.
I remember everybody going, I couldn't imagine. And I'm like, no, you can't. Like, I know I said the same thing. You say it as a trauma or as just as a response, you know, because you don't know what else to say. Because
What do you
what
say?
else do
Yeah.
you say? And I'm like, and I was like, just like, I remember going, yeah, you absolutely cannot. The realization of you cannot understand, you cannot comprehend. I'm in it and I can't comprehend, you know.
Exactly. And you know what, though? That's completely normal. Because, I don't know whether you guys, with some of the things you've been through, is you'll find that, for me, I can only talk for me, is that people who you thought were going to be your rocks
We're
are
so
nowhere
not.
to be seen.
Yes.
They're nowhere to be seen.
We completely understood
it's
that
quite,
one.
It's quite a confronting situation when your friends, your family, they're not there. They're there as the best they can be, but for you, it's not what you were expecting, and it hurts.
I was
But
gonna say,
with
you
that,
grieve. That's another form of grief that you have to deal with and you have to
you
handle.
grieve, and it is because people don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to say. When I say to people, you know what, just acknowledge. Because a lot of us, like me, I'm a nurse, I like to fix things, Even in business, my marketing business, my team used to call me Mrs. Fix-It a few years ago because I'd fix everything. Bron was Mrs. Fix-It. And I can't fix this. I can do my best, but I can't fix it, can't change it. I can do what's right for me. So I feel that, especially women, we like to fix things. We like to make things better. And when you can't, don't run away, but just acknowledge it and say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through that. Because no, you don't know what it's like to lose an aunt. You don't know what it's like to walk through that. I've met a beautiful man recently, and him and his mum nursed his uncle through to he passed in their own home. Because the guy used to live on his own. Like, wow, this kid, just has changed this young man's life. I can't relate, I can empathise, but I can acknowledge to go, and I said to him, I said, do you realise just how amazing human you are? And he's going, what? What are you talking about? I said, well, not everyone can do what you did. No one else, not a lot of people can stand and be a part of something, because when these adversities come, people either step up, or they step left and step out.
Yeah.
And we bless and release, and we say, thank you for letting me know, because why? You can't change that. That's out of the controllables. That's what I've learned. Doesn't mean you don't have emotional feelings, but you're not. I'm learning, and it's something that can be learnt, guys. This is the whole thing when I talk about Serenity and Serenity Project, which is what I'm all on about now, is because remember, you'd know the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Wisdom to know the difference. Yes.
And it's the wisdom to know the difference, right? And it's all learnt. How good is that? You can learn this stuff, which means that no matter what life throws you, we'll deal with it. Doesn't mean you deal with it in the moment. Doesn't mean you doesn't feel the feels. Doesn't mean it's a monumental shit show. But you will learn how to deal with it.
Yes, you eventually do. Whether it's a couple days from then, a couple weeks from then, a month, or 20 years later.
A lifetime.
Yeah, a lifetime.
A lifetime.
Yeah, it definitely is, because this whole podcast has become a healing property for us, for our relationship and our mental health. And we talk about anything, if we're going through something in that moment, we'll talk about it. And sometimes we talk about it before we get on the show, and then we get all the
and
good
then we
things
wonder
out.
why we didn't hit record.
Happens a lot.
It is our kind of signature thing. Like, damn, we should have recorded that thing.
But from an outside, yeah. Sorry, Giselle, you go.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, but isn't that the whole, like, the gift that you guys have, which is look in through the glass, and
Yes.
that unfiltered approach as a mother-daughter? Do you know how inspiring that is? Because you're having these amazing conversations with zero expectation, is what I see. And correct me if I'm wrong. Because I have this saying, and I keep thinking my mother-in-law taught me, but I'm not sure. It's called unspoken expectation leads to unresolved resentment.
Yes.
And I was a queen of that back in the day. And I think that's one of the big learnings I've had is to speak. And it's not I want, it's about I feel. And you guys are having these conversations, these open, raw conversations with each other. And I say that's just like, I'll take my hat off to you. And, you know, I'm learning, and I hope I'm having these conversations with my own children for this reason.
After my biggest adversities with the head injury and then the seizures, and then, well, being a meth addict and trying to get off the methamphetamines, and all it did was just put me in seizure. My brain couldn't handle those chemical drops.
Wow.
Like where, you know, every addict has a problem and suffers physically from those chemical drops. Mine was just on a much higher level where my body couldn't handle it and my brain couldn't handle it, and it would throw me into seizures as a response. So literally, with each seizure, you're facing death.
You are.
Just to be honest, there's times that where we did, you know, I would go into seizure and I would be in seizure for 20 minutes. Like,
wow.
Yeah, we're talking like we're not talking little seizures. We're talking life taking seizures, to the point where Giselle was one of the first people that I came to and said, "Hey, this is what's going on with me," and to the point where, you know, after I started telling my family members about my addiction and what was going on, it was to the point where they were like, "Mom, please go get it. Like, I'll go get," you know, because of what she was watching. And being saved from that, and I'm gonna say the serenity prayer, being saved, because I honestly, I have a quite supernatural story to my little addiction twist there, and I talk about it on other podcasts because you never know, you know, it's one of those things you really truly don't know. Have faith, you know.
I couldn't agree more.
Have faith, because you don't know, and I thought I did. I thought I was never going to be able to get off of it, and I was saved from it, and I haven't had a second chance. And I heard in the same moment, I was still doing methamphetamines when I heard start a podcast, come out about all your stuff, and I was like, and you know, I'm ashamed to say it now, but I was literally, fuck you. There's no way. There's no way I've spent so much time hiding it and all the bad talk that people have done about me throughout my life. Like, there's no way I'm going to sit there and prove them right. You're asking that of me, God? No way. Giselle, you know, she had wanted to start something way back when she was a teenager with us. She knew that her and I were meant to do something together like this. But I forgot the whole point of that story, but
that is the point of the story.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to heal the damage, or do the best that I could to help catalyst the healing of the damage I have created with my own tongue, with my own trauma bonding thoughts, and my own bullshit that I carried throughout, and all the bullshit that I literally just vomited all over my kids. You know, I wanted to do what I could, and Giselle was the starting point because she got the majority of it.
Thank you for sharing that, you know, because it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, and I think that's, in my world, that's part of healing, because I'm all about a healing path, right? You're never healed.
Yes.
You're always
We're
healing,
never healed,
I believe.
yeah.
You're never healed, right? So you're on a path of healing, and when you start acknowledging how you feel to yourself and then others, the vulnerability side of that, there's so much health, there's so much growth in there, and believe it or not, having that conversation with yourself, with Giselle, with your audience, being honest and truthful to yourself, to me is such an inspiration, because if other people did that, their lives will improve. They just will. And, you know, because back in the day, you know, I was the strong one. I was the one who helped everyone else, mother of 5, building the business, mentoring all my clients, all of the things, right? Put everyone else first. Mm-hmm. Everyone was got first, right?
Always.
I didn't even... And then, you know, people go, oh, self-care. And I go, oh, God, that term just shits me, right? It's like self-care. What does that mean?
What does that even mean?
What does it mean? And it's not that I didn't know all the doing parts of self-care, because when you've got in a business, you learn all these things. But to live it, and the only way I got to live it was to get a brick through my head that had the word cancer on it. And then it was up to me what I did next. And if that lesson is so valuable to anyone with any adversity, any part in their life, which is having that time, that moment to be truthful with themselves, because that's the most important part. And that's what you're saying, Zilla, is that you were truthful with yourself, knowing and making peace, and I don't like that word either, but making peace with the way you have lived, because you did the best you could with what you had, and now the best part is you know something different. And even through conversation and having that unfiltered approach to what's really going on, it's very, very powerful. And you're not hiding behind this story that you've created to make yourself feel better because of blame and shame. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it anyway.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
No, in all seriousness, all right? Because it's a lot of courage, and I say courage to both of you guys. Wow. Because it's hard. It's hard,
and for Giselle, she had to, because we talked about it before we even started. I came to her and said, God told me, go to her, and it was show them how to heal, talk about it. And we made a promise to each other and to the podcast itself, no, we'll whatever, we don't care, we'll talk about it. We'll know it's hard. We know it's hard, but we're not going to run from it. And we kind of made that vow together, because she could have easily rejected me, and she would have had every right to do so. Yeah. And I would have had to figure out a way to respect that. Exactly. I'm glad and I'm thankful and I'm grateful that I wasn't rejected and I didn't have to experience the way to try to figure that out. I didn't have to go through that. I'm very glad and I feel honored more than anything to be able to be here and her allow me to be here, Because there was totally. There was a lot of toxic stuff that I did that I spewed on her. There was, and like you said, I did the best I did with what I had, and I had to come to that conclusion to forgive myself. Just because you're looking at it from a different lens, you have more stuff now. You have more resources now. So you're going to look at it different now. You need to look at it from where you were then, and the resources you had then, and what you had at that moment, and stop judging from here and just go to where you were. Yeah.
And I think I went and saw Mel Robbins last week, which was fantastic. So not sure if you know Mel Robbins and her book Let Them and her podcast. She talks about letting go, which is what Let Them is. Let Them is, so for example, in this situation, you're speaking your truth for you. And she talks about having that zero expectation, because we have no control over what someone else thinks, does, says. Nothing.
Yeah.
You cannot control someone. You cannot expect someone. So, it's about, when I'm talking healing, I'm talking it for myself, because that's all I have. So there's two sides in her book. Let them. She's got let them, which in other words, let them have their feelings, their reactions, whether Giselle was accepting or not. That's her part of her story, whereas you have spoken your truth. And the other half is let me, which is, well, what can I do? And that's just serenity. To me, that whole serenity prayer, because as I said, my whole thing is called the Serenity Project, because to me, it's a project of finding serenity in a moment. It's not in a day or in a year. It's just in the moment. And I think when you are acknowledging it for yourself,
it in the moment.
In the moment, that's all we have. But learning that, not everyone can learn that, because a lot of people live in the past, or they live in the future. And the biggest part, I feel, is that if we focus on the now, which is what being a human being is, being present, having this conversation. How cool is that? Because this is us healing. This is how adversity can the barbs of adversity can ease off. I mean, if anyone is allowed, I'm allowed to say that. I have an incurable cancer. I'm allowed to speak that, and it's just to lift away the barbs. Can I remove them? No. But what I can do in that space is just live out me, the best I can be for me in every moment, and not blame and I'll give you, through all of these things, right? I had a conversation with one of my family members, and it took me a good few years to have the courage to let this person know exactly how I felt in regards to life. So I have this conversation, we're driving in the car, my husband's driving, family members in the front seat, I'm in the back. So I speak my truth, and this person didn't say a word, did not even acknowledge what I'd said. And my husband spoke to this person and said, "Did you hear what Bron just said?" And yeah. And in that moment, I had a choice. I didn't know it at the time, but I had a choice to go, I can't believe it, they're still not listening, victim, versus, well done you, Bron, for speaking your truth, because that was a true let them moment. And it's because what was the important part to me was speaking the truth for me. And then having that zero expectation of how they're going to respond. Because, how many times, guys, do you meet people and have a conversation and they don't, the answers aren't what you thought they were going to be. And you go, what the hell is that? And they, so has that happened to you before?
Yeah. Giselle has a pretty good story about that, actually.
Tell me.
Okay, so I'm 28 years old now, and almost 29. And out of all the years, my mom and I would get into an argument. I would just shut up, apologize for what happened, and just call it quits. Because I'm not getting through that thick ass skull of hers. He's not listening to me. So I'm done arguing. So one time we get into a really bad argument over the phone. I don't even remember what for.
We don't even know what it was about.
So her and I get into it really hard, and I hang up on her. I'm done listening to her bitch. That's what it was called. I'm just done. And she keeps calling me back and calling me back. And I'm like, I'm not answering. And so I said, you know what? No, this is what I'm going to do. And I answered, and I started talking, and she hung up on me. And I was like, no, you're not getting last word. You're going to hear what I have to say. I'm done with this. And I started typing out in my notes what I had to say to her because I was going to text it to her to make sure she got what I needed to say because I was tired of holding on to it and never getting it out because that was what happened over over the courses of years is I
Yeah.
never got to say what I needed to say because she didn't want to listen to me. And so because in what growing up it was the child has no voice, the child, we don't know
Mm.
any better, and that's a lot of what happened. And so I'm typing
I'm
it
parent,
out.
I'm right. That was my mentality.
And
Mm.
then so I'm typing it out and going off, and and then she was calling me back and left me a couple voicemails. Well, like, you better answer your phone. I'm on my way. You know what? And I was just like, no, I'm not answering. I'm not talking to you. You wanted to hang up on me? Guess what? You got to hear what I got to
Mm.
say.
Mm. Mm.
And so it was just a back and forth situation. And then when I found out she was on her way to my house, I was fully prepared for us to have this big ass fight in my house, me telling her to get off my property. Like, I was ready for this big old fight. It says she walks through my door and she gives me a hug. How the fuck am
Wow.
I supposed to respond to that?
Exactly. Exactly.
I was fully prepared to have a big old fight, and she's done this to me a couple times now because she's not that same person that I
Yeah.
grew up with, not that same person who, you know, who was always angry, who always had the say, and all of that. And to this day, it's been a couple years, but I still have to recognize and go, she's not that person. I can go to her. I can talk to her. You
Yeah.
know, it's not the response I'm gonna get, but because it's so trauma induced and it's so embedded
Yeah.
in that mind because it's happened so many times, you're now rewiring your own brain to make sure that that I'm not getting that response.
Yep.
Well, I created that response in you. That's my own damn fault. In all honesty, I created that response. I don't give a shit why I created it. I did create it. And that's the point is it doesn't matter why I created it. Yeah, there was points that where I wanted to be heard is why I created it, but in all honesty, it doesn't matter. I created it. So therefore, it's my job in my mind to uncreate it. In the amount time that I have left on this earth, I don't know when I'm going to be taken. None of us do.
No, that's right. That's right.
I don't have any diagnoses that says I'm going to be taken, but I do have seizures. And so I don't know when that moment's going to happen. We've lost people in car accidents left and right. We've lost people. We lose people unexpectedly. So we really don't know. That toe tag is not on our, and it's my responsibility. When I quit doing drugs and when I said, okay, I'm going to accept the type of person or the person that I have been all this time, I'm going
Yes.
to just accept that, because if I don't look at it for what it is, and if I don't accept that, see me for the unhealedness that I really am, then I'm never going to heal. Or I'm never going to start healing.
Agreed.
That's.
Yes. But that's the first thing, isn't it? Because that's taking responsibility for ourselves and not taking responsibility for everyone else. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you don't apologize or whatever, but you can't change it because it's happened. But you have the now. So, I talk about this thing where we're playing basketball, right? So imagine yeah, right. Imagine us playing basketball, right? I did in the day, right? And I swear to God. But, right, we're all on the court, right? And we're on a team. And we're all, and we line up the shot and we miss. So, time out. Come on, everyone's off the court having a chat. The coach is there. And that coach has a choice to either undo what's just happened or focus on what's next. And it's the same in life. If we focus on what's happened and unravel it, like psychologists and are really that's what they do. They like to unpack everything, right? But it's reliving that trauma. It's about how we handle the trauma, because they're all different kinds of trauma. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And then if we just focus on the what's next, not the whole game, not the season, not the competition, not all the things, but if you focus on just the next play, that's it. Do you know how much better we all are if it's just this little next bit? Like for me, it's just today. We know that, just for today.
Yeah.
And that, these lessons, because when our brains do the worry, and we project and we make up a story based on what's happened on the past. And CeeLo, with the past there, it's easy to go, well, if that's happened before, it can happen again, which is how these whole things unravel in the first place. And it's just around, and what next is that we take the situation, we take the moment in time, which is just what Giselle was talking about, which is you walking in the door and giving the hug. That's the what's next, rather than putting the whole of her life or the way she's reacted in the past into that moment. And what a great lesson. Like, we can give this to our kids. Oh my gosh. Then your grandbaby, like the future there is just so amazing. And we break these multi-generational traumas. I don't know if you believe in them, but I sure as hell do.
Oh,
That's
no,
what
no,
I've learned.
they're 100% there. Yeah, they're, and our family, my mother's side, anyways, is nothing but women, very strong, independent, hard-headed, hard-willed women that have had to take a lot of hits and a lot of adversities throughout their lives and survive the best that they could with what the best
Exactly.
they could. And mental health and healing and all of that is so more looked at nowadays compared to
Isn't it?
my ancestors. And and that's how I choose to look at it, because I do remember earlier I said I didn't remember our 15-minute, but in our 15-minute you spoke about that car ride and you spoke about that conversation. And
Because it might just sound like a car ride, but that
but
was
it
one of the
wasn't
biggest healing moments in my life, because
Yeah.
I liken these things to, I had a beautiful woman help me through for a couple of years. I call her an energy healer, but it's not actually what she is. I don't quite know what exactly. She's just this most incredible, intuitive soul, and her name's Kerry, and she'd talk about the twines, or like an octopus has these tentacles that have come from you that were given to you by your family, and
cords.
yes, right. So and then
I understand energy.
and that hold, and so that conversation was one of the most important conversations, even though it did not go the way I expected. But I did not hold the resentment, because I learnt in that moment that to speak my truth, snip, and I'm snipping off. And that I'm a visual, so I'm always visualizing what it must look like, and so it's freeing myself
I just did
from
a
these.
Reiki.
Yes,
I just did a Reiki session last night. I'm going through another adversity in my marriage right now, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you very much.
I'm really sorry to
We're
hear
doing
that.
our best, doing our best, and I'm doing my best to come look at it from the most healed point of view I possibly can, and do my best to not take anything that isn't mine, because I am one of those.
Yeah, me too.
I am one of those.
Give it back. Give it
Exactly. And so like this has been a life altering news, life changing, marriage ending type of situation. We found out that he has been cheating on me for the past 6 years.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear. That's terrible. I'm sorry.
I'm very much not the victim mentality type of person, and
Yeah.
in all honesty, I'm just gonna be honest as with it. I'm thankful for it because one, I need to know truth. I much
Yeah.
rather know truth than continue on with the path that we were on, as individuals and as a couple. You
Yeah.
know, two, it has um, allowing me is what it is me giving me the permission now to do that snips to the things that
Yeah.
I need to do because it's brought forth, oh, well, I can understand this is where this happened, or this is where this happened, and this and that, and it's kind of breaking it down, you
Yeah.
know. But regardless, this is the first time in my 47 years. I just turned 47 on the 11th. And this is the first time in 47 years that I am choosing me.
Wow.
Whatever that looks like, if that means that my marriage is saved, then that's okay because I chose me. If that means that my marriage it dissolves and I am looking at a completely different life, that's okay because I'm choosing me. And I don't
Yeah.
have to make that choice right now. Like I've always had to make these certain choices. When you going through life and you have to make these choices now, and I've always been forced with you got to make this choice right now. And it's something that I've actually been contending with on the no, Sela, you don't have to make that choice right now.
No.
You can
No, you
allow
don't.
time. You can allow time. And what you can do, because I didn't react for the first time to something huge like this. I didn't react. I listened. And then
Wow.
there was a then what moment. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did because he tried coming to me with half truths, but intuition, and I'm an energy reader as well.
You'd
And
know.
I kept telling him, I don't believe you. You're telling me half truths. And so there was manipulation and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it any credit because if you're coming to truth with somebody, you come to truth with somebody. You don't try to continue
right.
to manipulate.
And I'm just going to hit pause there for you, for your listeners, is to hear what's really happening here is Zila is making a decision for herself.
Yep.
That is so, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is, right? Because I think what happens in life, we all like to control outcomes. Well, we want to control what comes next. And
Yes.
sometimes, well, I know for me that this saying I have is I know I will, I just don't know how.
Yes.
Like what I'm hearing you say, and I could be wrong, what I'm hearing you say is you will stand by you and protect you as a person. You just don't know how.
I just don't know how. Exactly. No, 100%. And to be able to be in that spot and not be in that fear-based. So April 6th is my 2-year being clean. So breaking that and seeing that addict fear-based behavior is no longer living in me like it did. It is no longer controlling me. It is no longer controlling the narrative. Me, am controlling the narrative in me. I can't control the narrative everywhere else, but I am controlling the narrative within myself. And 2 years ago, this information that I've gotten would have broken.
It would have unraveled you. Absolutely.
It would have unraveled me. And, and like he was telling me, this is the hardest thing because he is stepping up and now, all that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, not trying to bash my husband, and it's for nobody to make any judgment upon him except
No,
for
it's
me.
none of our. It's actually none of our business either. But when I say
Exactly.
that, we're here to listen, because you're listening.
Yeah.
Someone else will be going through this, and they don't know
I
how to
know
handle
that they're
it.
going through it. But and him and I have had conversations in this moments of chaos that we're finding ourselves in, that we're finding that we can be more honest with each other than we've ever been before.
Wow.
And, that in itself is inspiring for me, and to continue to be me throughout this, and not dim my light, and not shrink to fit any role that I have been previously trying to shrink into.
Wow.
And that is where I'm at with all of it. I'm still, it's only been like 2 months. Has it even been that long? It's been like 2 months since I found out, month and a half, 2 months. But in this time frame, like, I've found the strength that I had no idea was there. And I am a firm believer that things happen for you, not to you.
Correct. I agree. But that's part of the learning, though, isn't it? Because not everyone.
Exactly.
That's the inspiring thing here, is as you're talking, believe it or not, Zilla, it is identical to where I'm at and how I live each day. And I'm dealing with cancer. You're dealing with marriage, relationship challenges, and we as people are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Believe
and
it or
that's
not.
amazing. That's right. That's the big takeaway right there. I think that is the biggest takeaway right there, is although we may be dealing with different avenues, we're still dealing with the same thing.
It's the same thing, right? Because it's about I think when you take back yourself for you. And so, for example, this year was the first year I actually did a business plan for the last 3 years in my business, right? So we've just been coasting along. And I actually put the word healing in the middle of my business plan. So I'm being visual, right? Circles, clouds, hearts. It's hilariously funny. So not professional, but it worked, right? So normally it's a goal, or it's a business, or it's a whatever, right? So in the middle is healing. And what you're talking about is healing, right? In the middle of what you're doing through is healing. And then off that comes all the things. So like my own podcast, the book, the community, socials, whatever. All of the things that come with, that's the business stuff. But imagine doing that for yourself. You got healing in the middle, and then you put all the things off that are important to you. You don't have all the answers of it. There's not all the. There's no. They're just clouds with lines at the moment.
I'm still trying to figure out what's important to me right now. I'm still
what? You don't. You know,
I know the
you will,
answers
but you
will
don't know
come.
how. Saying what you're saying, Celia, what I'm hearing is, as I said, for someone who's just heard what you've heard, to put yourself first, it's already happened. The goodness has already happened, because we don't have the answers. We don't even the what next is literally what you've just said, which is, this is me, and I'm being truthful for me, and I'm not having expectations that someone else is going to do something else, so does that make sense? I feel like I'm rattling here.
No, it does make sense. I love it. It does make a lot of sense. And you're right. It is, I did finally choose me. Like, in the moment, I chose me. And whatever whatever it comes out at here, or however it plays, it will take the course that it needs to take. And I'm having full faith, not only in God, in source, the creator, but in me. in myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and to allow myself to feel a little bit of that strength that comes with that is something I haven't allowed myself, I don't think, ever.
You know, and when you go through bad shit, you know, people used to say to me, "Oh, Bron, you're so strong." It's like, well, you don't know how strong you are until you've got no choice. What do you want me to do? What am I going to do? I got the youngest at the time was, you know, what are we talking now? It's going to be 9 years this year. No, 8 years this year since the first diagnosis, right? What are you going to do? I had an 8-year-old as the youngest, an 18-year-old for the eldest, you know? So, but with that, I learned, because I used to have a hat that had the word hope on the back. Oh, hope, right? And now I realise that hope for me is not enough. So what I turn that round is to the courage. I talk about courage because it's courage and courageous to even say what we're saying in this conversation. See, for you to say that I choose me, I don't know how the hell that works, but I'm choosing me. You know, that's true healing in my world. And so, because it's courage because you are, you know, we are standing against the crowd. Because society and life and culture and, you know, we have Australian culture, you have American culture, we have so many cultures that, you know, in Australia, she'll be right, mate. You'll be right. Treatment's over. You'll be right. What do you mean I'll be right? I'm not right. I'm in remission. Remission doesn't last forever. What are you saying to me? Because it's not, you know, and it's literally looking through the glass. In other words, you don't have a ceiling, you have a glass. If there's a ceiling, it's glass and you can see through it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I think that's really empowering for your listeners to hear. For me, my word for this is courage. And I, as I said, we are sitting amongst people who are extremely powerful right now for themselves, because it takes a lot of courage to admit, you know.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
I love how you word things. I really love how you know you're like, what I hear is this, and then the way you word it is very elegant and very empowering. You give it that empowerment that, you know, you kind of remind me of the Riverside when we go through and it sums up and we're like, oh wow, that looks so good.
Gives you the magic moments.
Yeah. When you're like, wow, I would have never been able to do that.
Well, there's one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to call Sela out, because that's what I do. She is taking and learning how to put herself first, but sometimes she's too stubborn to do that. And her kids have to look at her and go, Mom, you need to put yourself first. Especially when it comes to the podcasting. There are days where she needs a break. She's overdone it. She's been out and about, doing too much, had a really emotional day the day before. And, you know, so I have to look at her, about a month ago, at the beginning of the month. We had family in town, and I was like, look, we've been doing a lot this weekend. I'm just going to rebook, you know, tomorrow, the next day's, you know, podcasting. It's okay. We're booked out. We're fine. If they don't, life happens, and we are experiencing real life. We like our listeners to know that we are in real life. We like our guests to know that we are in real life. So if they're not understanding, then they're just not meant for us. And
Correct.
I'm going to put it as blatantly like that as possible, because honestly, this is our podcast. This is something that I like our listeners to know, is that I am just as human as they are. My life is full of mistakes and shit, crazy things going on. I have a baby crying in the background. I gotta do this and that. Dogs barking, dinner cooking. That's just how it goes. I don't feel like doing this. Dirty house. That's how it goes. That's life. And
But Giselle, you still showed up.
Exactly. And there's just days where we're not going to be able to because we're just having that bad of a day and we need to take a day for ourselves.
I do
Yes.
push myself. I'm one of those because, like, for me, even just being in a vehicle driving somewhere takes a lot of energy from me. Um, when you have a head injury, it's like everything you do takes 5 times more energy than it
Yeah.
does for people that don't have a head or haven't had a head injury. And then also, because I'm in the post concussion syndrome, I have the where I'm constantly in a concussion state. Some days, an emotional toll. Like my biggest number one trigger is emotional stress. Number two trigger is lack of sleep, and
Yeah.
then number three
I was going to
trigger
say
is
tiredness.
yeah, lack of sleep is the one of those things. And I'm definitely the type of person, if I get too tired, I don't sleep. Like, and I do my best to not be on any medications. There's times, I
Yeah.
have to do what I have to do. But I'm one of those, no, I don't want to take any medications. you know.
Yeah.
I spent years trying to get off of them, and it was like to go back on them after finding out this, and it's just sleep medication. It's not that big of a deal, but for me it was like I just took 10 steps back. But it was like when you toss the no sleep with emotional stress, all I'm doing is making a huge, huge, huge issue within my body, and I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah. Well, you're in the reacting moment where we react versus respond.
Yeah.
When I first started the Serenity Rising podcast, see, I take my hat off to you guys because I didn't realise just how much work a podcast takes, right? So I started my podcast only in December last year. And one of my very first guests, she's been running her podcast for years. And she said to me, Bron, the way that I run life now in business, and she's a woman who I've known for many years, and we're in a mentoring program way back in 2011, and that's how I met her, through this mentoring program, and she's just done amazing things. Anyway, Jo said to me, she said, Bron, if I'm not up to it, I listen to myself and my body, and she said, I'll cancel. If I have to cancel on the day, I'll cancel on the day. And I said, really? She said, absolutely. She said, absolutely. I back myself and my health, and if it's not a fit on the day, how am I serving and supporting my community if I'm not looking after myself? I went, good point. And that is something that I really, and like, really, and it's like, that's not rocket science, Bron, but anyway, wake up, woman. And so I think when you have been the person who's done it all and carried a load that you didn't ask for, but a load that you shouldn't have carried anyway, because you took responsibility when it wasn't yours to take. For me, I'm talking to myself here. It's a really interesting thing when you suddenly realise, you know what, I'm not feeling great today. I'm cancelling. I'm actually not great. So 100% agree with that, Giselle, is that it's just acknowledging it. And the thing is, it's catching it before it happens. And I think that's the celebration is one, you've even got the awareness. You might be the awareness at the moment, but then Zila will get to the point where she catches herself. And like, to me, that's a huge win. Courage to say the words to people. Just saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Courage to say the words. Yes, absolutely. Ron, this has been an amazing conversation. You were amazing. I want to thank you for coming on to our podcast. I want to thank you for reaching out to us, and I just thank you for everything.
Oh, look, you know what? I just am so grateful to you guys. And as I said, when I found what you were doing, I went, yes, we need more of this in this world. Well, for me anyway. So I think, well done, guys.
Thank you very much.
We really need that. We get a lot of compliments, and I think that every time we get the compliments, it's just like we really are making an impact, and it's nice to know that there's other people out there that look at us and go, no, we need this and you guys are doing it. And I think that right there keeps us pushing as much as as
Absolutely.
crazy as it is, because sometimes there's days where I'm like, are we even making an impact? Are we even, because sometimes there's days where we don't get the listens that we thought we would get. There's times where we're like,
Mm.
oh, we only got 3 listeners in one day. And so it kind of gives that discouragement. But I, hearing those words, thank you. I appreciate that
Oh,
more than
look.
anything.
And the 3 listens, they're the ones who are meant to listen. So awesome job. Because, yeah, it's not about the numbers, it's about the impact that we don't know what we do. So, yeah,
Right?
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So excited. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much. Make sure that we get your links to your podcast and all of that, so we can make
Yeah,
sure that
yeah.
we put it in there for our listeners. Because having you on our podcast, I guarantee you have a great podcast. And
Oh, it's
you
only
know,
new. She's a baby, but anyway, we're getting there.
that's okay. This is we're not that old. We're only since
7
September,
months.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're new too. So you got to start somewhere, right?
You got it,
start
and that's the
somewhere.
whole point, isn't it? That's the whole point. Is if you didn't start, then
We
what?
wouldn't,
So
yeah, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here.
Wouldn't be
But yeah,
here.
make sure that you we get all of those, and then
Yeah,
letting
I'll
our
send them
listeners
through.
know. Let our listeners know that it's going to be in our links, since we didn't really talk too much about it.
no, and that's fine. That doesn't bother me, because to me it's all about the collaboration and the conversation.
Yes.
Because the right people will hear. That's the way I figure it. I don't know
Absolutely.
how. I have no idea how, but it just seems to happen that way.
Yes.
Can't go upon our own understanding, can we?
Correct.
We cannot rely upon our own understanding, and that's something that I've learned through this healing journey too.
Yeah.
And when you start to wake up to certain things in the healing journey, and in the energies and this and that, you really start to see.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna end this for our listeners. If you have a story that you would like to contact us, and if you want to stay anonymous, we respect that. Just, you don't have to have a name to the story in order for it to make an impact. Your story does count, and it does matter. You can reach us at 12lookinthrough THRU 34 the glass at gmail.com, or Facebook or TikTok, or even you can message us on our YouTube, whatever you want. Thank you for looking into the glass.